Hey man, say man, it's your boy Big Dreams. Welcome back to the channel. Before we carry on with the photo with this video, make sure y'all like, make sure y'all comment, most importantly, make sure y'all subscribe and hit that post notification bell. Set it to all. We is back with another banger video, back with another reaction video. Man, and today, y'all see the screen, we are reacting to what SNOWFALL didn't tell you about the real life gangster Uncle Jerome. Hood War Chronicles YouTube. Finna dig in here and see what's going on. I'm not gonna make the opening of this video too long. All I ask is that y'all smash that like button so this video can rank higher in the algorithm. Go crazy in the comments. Let me know what you want me to react to. And if you're watching me and you're not subscribed, man, subscribe. That's all I ask. We finna go ahead and dig in, man.
Puddin made Pyru what it is today. Puddin and Tam, they were, I'll be honest, they were psychopaths. All the Crip gangs in Compton knew Puddin because he put in working against all of us.
You had to be careful of that one person Puddin, man. Because he had a green 69 rip he had. Ever we seen a green 69 rip he had, we would run whatever because we didn't know if that was Puddin or not.
I had went to jail for shooting this Puddin who started the blood gang.
Now wait, look. I did some research on all this. This is, see, look. This why it's good to do research in a situation like this. I did my research this time. I did it.
After I shot dude, but they don't know it was self-defense.
Hold on. So about this situation right here, let me go to my files real quick because I had did my research, bro. So, it says Puddin was once in a relationship with Jewel from Death Row. I'm assuming this must be who that is, Jewel, which started off well until he became violent towards her. In an altercation between the two, Jewel attempted to strip Puddin of his gun, resulting in her shooting him in the chest. And he was later found deceased in, looks like 2006. So this has to be that situation.
He beat me up and he was very violent and jealous.
If you've watched SNOWFALL, there's a good chance Uncle Jerome was one of your favorite characters. With his gritty demeanor, raw street vibe, and unforgettable one-liners, he was easily one of the most loved characters on the show.
Teach your man how to squabble.
But here's a twist that might blow your mind. Uncle Jerome was actually inspired by a real-life figure, someone whose reputation was so infamous that he's considered one of the most dangerous men in history. Meet OG Puddin. OG Puddin wasn't just another street figure. He was the founder of the Pyru Boys.
I'm gonna speak on this too, but I'm gonna let him get his out the way first.
If you think Uncle Jerome was tough, Puddin was on a whole different level. His reputation wasn't just based on hearsay. He earned it through actions that some would describe as downright psychopathic and decaying machine.
Puddin made Pyru what it is today. Puddin and Tam, they were, I'll be honest, they were psychopaths. And I used to see them, I said, man, there'd be some good Crip, because these some straight killers.
He was notorious for putting in work, a term that downplays just how violent and relentless he was against his enemies. His reputation alone was enough to strike fear in people's hearts. Stories about him were so wild that if someone even spotted a car resembling his, they'd scatter without hesitation. Nobody wanted to take the risk of finding out if it was really him behind the wheel.
You had to be careful of that one person Puddin, man. Because he had a green 69 rip he had. Ever we seen a green 69 rip he had, we would run whatever because we didn't know if that was Puddin or not.
Now, when you think of Uncle Jerome, his afro, his mannerisms, and the way he carried himself, it's clear to see the similarities between him and OG Puddin. Both had a commanding presence that made them stand out. And just like Puddin, Uncle Jerome was around during the early days of the crack epidemic that turned LA upside down.
I need you outside. If you ain't about damn family, stay out my brain.
However, as wild as Jerome's antics were in the series, they don't even come close to the real-life chaos tied to OG Puddin. Let's break it all down. Sylvester Scott.
Okay, alright. So now since he got that part out the way, I did research this. And this is not for me to slam this dude about, and I'm not going to do that because I ain't that kind of person. I did my research. Jerome Saint was not based off of OG Puddin. He was not based off of OG Puddin. Jerome and Louis together were based off of a different couple who successfully ran the drug game. So the guy who Jerome was, you know, made up after in the show, goes by the name of Death. And he was the husband of Jamaica. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. Jamaica Thompson, who was one of the biggest traffickers in United States history. Before her rise to power, she learned the game from Daft, whose real name was Anthony. Daft was a little older than Jamaica and showed her the ropes of the drug game. They built a strong bond, and from there they created an empire. Daft is pictured, or look, I did my research, I screenshotted everything. It was a little picture of his son, whatever, because I think in Snowfall, Jerome and, well, Louis ended up pregnant like later on in the show. So I think they did ended up having a son. They ended up getting married, of course. And Daft was actually at a LA car wash playing dice when one of his ops came and offed him. And so from there, after Daft had passed away, Jamaica went on and she continued the business and she enhanced it and became one of the biggest drug slingers in history. So that's the research. Jerome and Louis were based off of Daft, real name Anthony, and Jamaica Thompson. That's who they were modeled after. And that's what research shows when I did it. Not me trying to slam this guy for it, but, you know, I just wanted to throw that out there. But I did my research on this guy Puddin' too. And, you know, I ain't gonna spoil it right now because it's too early. But he was a bad boy himself, you know, so.
Puddin was born on November 13th, 1954, in Los Angeles, California. His early life began in a neighborhood located on 115th Street between Compton Avenue and Wilmington, an area just a stone's throw away from Nickerson Gardens. For those unfamiliar, Nickerson Gardens is now a known stronghold for the bounty hunter Bloods, but back in the early 1970s, it was just another part of the ever-evolving landscape of LA's gang culture. Around 1972, the Scott family relocated to Compton, where they settled in a modest single-story home on Piru Street near Parr Avenue. It was a move that would unknowingly place Puddin at the epicenter of gang history. At that time, Compton was over 90% black and deeply affected by socioeconomic struggles that created the perfect breeding ground for gang culture. The Crips were on the rise, dividing into the East Side Crips and the West Side Crips, and later forming the Compton Crips. These factions grew in strength and started claiming different neighborhoods, using intimidation and violence to expand their territory. Street fights, or rumbles, were common back then. Initially, they were all about hand-to-hand combat, which was something Raymond Washington, one of the Crips' founders, preferred. But as tensions rose, so did the level of violence. Soon, bats, chains, and knives became standard weapons in these clashes. As the Crips grew, so did their boldness. Leaders like Raymond Washington, Tukey Williams, and Michael Conception turned their focus to Centennial High School, targeting students and recruiting followers by force. Within a short time, the Crips gained a large following, but not everyone was willing to bow down to their intimidation tactics. One day, things took a serious turn when Raymond Washington and a group of his followers decided to test their power by attacking Sylvester Scott, Puddin, and his close friend Vincent Owens. Both young men were living on Piru Street at the time and were well respected in the neighborhood. Raymond probably thought they'd fold under pressure like others had, but that wasn't the case. Instead of backing down, Puddin and Vincent fought back with everything they had, refusing to let the Crips victimize them. That moment was a game changer. It wasn't just a simple street fight. It set off a chain of events that would forever change the gang landscape in Compton and beyond. At the end of the heated confrontation between Sylvester Scott, aka OG Puddin, Vincent Owens, and Raymond Washington's crew, someone could be heard shouting, "Don't mess with nobody from Piru Street and take that Crip dude with you." That line set the stage for something much bigger. Fueled by their refusal to be bullied and a growing need to protect their turf, Puddin made a bold move. He officially created the Piru Street Boys, claiming the area.
In this case, with that situation, Puddin and the other guy, I think they said his name was Vincent Owens, that's where the Piru Street gang came from. That's where, you know, Piru came from. So from now on, the rest is just, you know, history for the Piru Street gang.
Around around Compton's West Piru Street, which intersected Central Avenue, just north of 136th Street, as their turf. Back then, Puddin' wasn't the imposing figure most people came to fear later. In fact, people described him as a scrawny kid who liked nothing more than throwing a football around with friends. But don't let that fool you. He had a fire in him. The Piru boys started small, and in the beginning they were loosely associated with the Crips. But as time went on, tension started bubbling under the surface. Internal conflicts arose, and Puddin' realized that aligning with the Crips wasn't in their best interest. They split off and decided to carve their own path. The problem was the Crips heavily outnumbered the Piru boys, and going against such a large established gang wasn't going to be easy. Puddin' had to think bigger.
Okay, and with that being said, when you think about it, so Sylvester Scott, OG Puddin', Vincent Owens, they started the Piru Street Gang, right? Keep that in mind. Crips had already, tried coming at them. They knew they was outnumbered in the beginning, and so during that time, heavy artillery started that started to become a thing in some areas, and so in order for them to keep up and be able to hold their own, they got to get into the same thing that the Crips was already into, so they can survive. And what was that? The drug game. The drug game allow you to make your bread. You get to buy your artillery.
Uniting smaller black sets from areas surrounding Compton, places like Looters Park and Westside neighborhoods.
I did my research this time, y'all. I feel good.
Dominance, and under Puddin's leadership, they came together. This coalition would eventually evolve into the Bloods, a powerful alliance that changed the game in LA forever. To distinguish themselves from the Crips, the Bloods adopted the color red as their identifying mark, a move that's still iconic today. But standing out came at a cost. Being outnumbered meant that the Piru boys and their allies had to level up fast, especially when it came to firepower. Violence was inevitable, and Puddin' knew they couldn't rely on fists and knives forever. To afford the heavy artillery they needed, the Piru boys had to step into the same game that the Crips had mastered, the drug trade. Puddin', though still a teenager, had already earned a reputation.
Told y'all I did my research this time. Y'all should be proud of me. I did my research.
Player in the drug scene, not just surviving, but thriving. He was more than just a hustler. He was strategic, ruthless, and determined to hold his ground. By the time he was fully established, Puddin' wasn't just one of the biggest drug traffickers in Compton. He was the undisputed leader of one of the city's most violent and feared gangs.
Yeah, Puddin' was nothing nice.
Puddin' wasn't the type to stand out as a fighter. His reputation didn't come from throwing hands. It came from what he did with a gun in his hands.
Yeah,
but he had
they said Puddin' was quick with a firearm.
And because he's not here with us, I might say some things like,
they say Puddin' was pow, 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 like they used to do back in the old Western days.
Took out 5 bullets and put 1 bullet in, and spin the drill, walked up to my head, right, and pulled the trigger, right. You can go. He did me and my homies like that. They put 1 bullet in it and pulled the trigger. Cause he talking about he was in a good mood that day. But he was a psychopath.
As the leader of the Piru boys, Puddin' set the tone for everything. He created an atmosphere of pure intimidation, and his crew followed his lead without question. Under his leadership, the Pirus took on an aggressive stance, and Puddin's actions sparked a chain reaction that changed the game in Compton forever. In 1972, the real war in Compton began. Puddin' decided he wasn't going to wait around for the Crips to make a move. He brought the fight to them. He and a small crew of Pirus opened fire on a group of Crips, marking the start of what would become an all-out battle for control of Compton. That initial attack ended in a quadruple shooting, leaving 1 person dead and several others injured. It was a bold and bloody message that Puddin' wasn't playing games, and from that moment on, he became Compton's most wanted.
Being a leader of a gang that opposed the Crips, it was like a trophy. But we had targets on the back, and the cold part about having a target on your back, youngsters, you don't even know.
Every Crip in the area wanted Puddin' dead, but catching him was easier said than done. Puddin' was strategic. He never stayed in one spot too long, and he constantly switched vehicles after pulling off hits. This made him incredibly hard to track, and his elusiveness only added to his mystique. Over time, Puddin's name started carrying a kind of mythical weight. People whispered stories about him,
See,
claiming
look,
he was untouchable.
that's the difference between YNs and OGs. OGs, if they gonna do some dirt, they gonna do it the right way. They gonna be smart about it. OG who was a part of a gang back in the 1960s, 1970s, bro, he can do some jump, and it'll be a long time for you even be able to, see his face again after that day. OGs was smart back in the days. Y'all YNs now y'all ain't nowhere near strategic how them OGs was back in the day. Them OGs had nothing to play with. Them old bruh, listen, YNs do stuff just to do it. And next thing you know, you doing 70 years because you went smart. Like, I don't get it, bro. YNs think they, everything and can't nothing happen to them and this, that, and the third. I'ma just say, bro, YNs are dumb and they move dumb. Them OGs, if they were gonna do some dirt, they covered their tracks to a T. 99% of the time, tracks was covered. You not finna see them. You not finna find them. And if you just find them, it's because they really, really slipped up somewhere, bro. For real.
Puddin wasn't just hiding out. He was on the offensive. He would venture into new territory, including the east side of Compton, just to prove a point. One of his most notorious targets was the infamous Red House on Pine Street. The Red House was a known Crip hangout where Tookie Williams
you pass him and you start spraying.
Red House on Pine Street. The Red House was a known Crip hangout where Tookie Williams and other big names often gathered. Puddin made it a personal mission to shoot up the Red House on multiple occasions, sending a clear message to the Crips that nowhere was safe. Puddin wasn't just gunning for anyone, though. He had a hit list. His targets were the top Crip leaders, the ones who had the most influence and power. And at the top of that list was Tookie Williams himself. Tookie wasn't just another Crip. He was a legend in his own right, known for his size, strength, and leadership. Most people wouldn't dare cross him.
Cuz looked like he could bench 405.
Known for his size, health.
Cuz looked like he could bench 405 by 6 times. Boy, that man built like he's somewhere built like CT Fletcher. I ain't even gonna lie to you. Cuz look like he can just yak him a nigga up and I told you don't miss, So look, now you was talking all that mess now, yeah. Cuz look, he got a mean headlock. I ain't gonna lie to you.
He wasn't just an
head. I'm talking about headlock game mean.
Known for his size, strength, and leadership, most people wouldn't dare cross him. But Puddin wasn't most people. One day, Puddin finally got his chance. He ambushed Tookie on Almond Street, catching him off guard. Armed with a .45, Puddin opened fire. Tookie scrambled for cover, ducking behind a house to avoid the shots, but he wasn't quick enough. One of the bullets hit him in the leg, leaving him seriously injured.
I know he surprised Tookie. Surprised the heck out of Tookie. Over there on Almond Street.
But if y'all think about it too, man, keep this in mind. So the Crips already had they set established, bro. If OG Puddin coming up in there and he just not starting off and they have to go out and recruit, they gotta get their money up, they gotta get their power up and their artillery up. Once he get that up and the Crips already established and you just not coming into it, and the goal is to fight to control Compton, of course, him being the underdog, he finna come and send y'all a message. Especially if you know what I'm saying, they say, hey, he quick with that thing now. He quick with that firearm. So like y'all think he not finna come, you know what I'm saying, send y'all a clear message? Oh, he was on a mission. Because they had just not started off, so if he didn't set the tone, then he wasn't going,
a giant in the Crip world. For someone to not only go after him, but actually injure him was unheard of. But even a man as fearsome as Puddin couldn't escape loss. In 1975, his close friend Tam was offed by the Crips, and it hit him hard. Tam wasn't just another member of the crew. He was like a brother to Puddin. Losing someone so close flipped a switch in him, and what followed was a level of vengeance the streets had never seen. Puddin went into an uncontrollable frenzy. He was determined to make every Crip in Compton feel his pain. Puddin wanted to send a message. He started targeting Crips all over the city, making sure the fear of his name echoed in every corner. The hits were brutal, but also calculated. Crips were getting shot in their legs, feet, and ankles. In one incident, a bullet grazed a Crip's head so closely it knocked his cap clean off. That Crip was left hysterical, realizing just how close he'd come to death at Puddin's hands. During this rampage, Puddin wasn't just making isolated hits. Sometimes multiple Crip spots
see Matt.
Spots were hit on the same night, leaving the gang scrambling to figure out how to protect themselves. It got to the point where just the sight of a car that looked like Puddin's would send Crips running in every direction. They didn't wait around to see if it was him. They weren't willing to take the risk.
You had to be careful of that one person Puddin, man, because he had a green 69 Rip Yap. Ever we seen a green 69 Rip Yap, we would run and whatever, because we didn't know if that was Puddin or not.
And here's the wildest part. Puddin carried out most of these missions solo. He didn't need backup because he was that confident in his skills. His precision with a gun was something else entirely. People said he could hit a target from 30 yards away like it was nothing. That level of accuracy made him even more dangerous because no one could escape his aim. If Puddin came for you, chances were he was going to hit his mark. But even someone like Puddin couldn't keep up that kind of lifestyle without consequences. Eventually, his reign of terror came to a pause when he got arrested for a R charge. Puddin was sent to prison, and for a while, the streets of Compton got a chance to breathe. But while he was locked up, Puddin didn't just sit around. Prison became his training ground. That scrawny kid who once loved to toss around a football was gone. By the time Puddin was released, he bulked up, becoming a muscular and even more intimidating figure. By the late 1970s, the Black Panthers were making moves in South Central, expanding their presence from Oakland and trying to recruit from the gangs in the area. They had already gained some traction in South Central, successfully uniting a few
They wasn't
gangs
no
under
joke
their
either.
movement. Their next big goal was to move
They
into
wasn't no
Compton,
joke
which was
either, do you
already
hear me?
a hotbed of gang activity. If the Panthers succeeded in uniting the gangs of Compton into one massive coalition, it would have been a game changer. Not just for the gangs, but for law enforcement. The Compton Police Department saw this as a serious threat. At the time, their entire force consisted of just 130 officers, which wasn't nearly enough to control a united super gang. If the gangs in Compton banded together under the Panthers' banner, it would have made maintaining order in the city nearly impossible. The situation could have gotten so out of hand that the police feared they'd have to call in the National Guard. Faced with this possibility, a few officers in the Compton PD decided to take matters into their own hands, and that's where Puddin came into the picture. Recognizing his influence over the Pyru and his power in the streets, the officers struck a secret deal with him. If Puddin and the Pyrus could keep the Black Panthers out of Compton, the police would back off his drug trade operations. Puddin agreed, and the deal worked. The Panthers were never able to gain a foothold in Compton, largely because Puddin and the Pyrus made it clear they weren't welcome. By keeping the Panthers out, he maintained control over Compton and ensured that his operation could run without disruption. But deals with the police only go so far. By 1987, Puddin's luck ran out when he was arrested for selling coke to an undercover officer. It was a major blow, and he was sent to Chino State Prison to serve his time. His time in prison, however, revealed just how corrupt the system could be. In 1991, Puddin and over a dozen other drug dealers testified in a massive case against 6 narcotics officers from Los Angeles. These officers were accused of brutal tactics, including beating drug dealers, stealing money during raids, and planting coke to frame people. Puddin had his own story to tell. According to federal prosecutors, the officers had planted a plastic bag containing 118 grams of coke in Puddin's car, and then arrested him on drug charges. But that wasn't all. Puddin testified that $16,000 he had stashed in a paper bag at his mother's house mysteriously went missing after deputies searched the property. He didn't report the theft at the time because the money came from drug sales, but it was clear the officers had taken it. When Puddin got out of prison, he jumped back into life, and part of that included starting a relationship with Jewel, famously known as the First Lady of Death Row. At first, things between them were intense, full of passion and fire. Jewel was a rising star in the music world, known for her connection to Death Row Records, and Puddin was still one of the most feared and respected figures to come out of Compton. Together, they seemed like a power couple from two different worlds. But as fiery as their romance was in the beginning, it didn't take long for things to spiral out of control. Their relationship started hitting rough patches, and what was once hot and heavy turned into arguments and drama. Things reached a breaking point when, in a shocking turn of events, Jewel shot Puddin in the chest.
I had went to jail for shooting this Putin who started the blood gang.
Jewel later claimed that it was self-defense, saying Putin had been physically abusive and that he was jealous of her success with death row.
So I had a lot of on the after I shot dude, but they don't know it was self-defense because he was beating me up and he was very violent and jealous.
On the surface, it seemed like her story could add up. Putin was a man who wasn't used to playing second fiddle to anyone, and Jewel's rising fame might have made things tense. But others close to the situation weren't so sure about Jewel's version of events. People who knew Putin said that while he was tough and had a reputation as a dangerous figure, he wasn't known for being abusive. Instead, they believed the real issue might have been jealousy, just not the kind Jewel described. Putin had always been a ladies' man. Even with Jewel in his life, he was constantly dealing with other women. This could have sparked jealousy and arguments on both sides, creating a powder keg that finally exploded that fateful day. Despite the drama, people who knew Putin couldn't deny his magnetic presence. He was described as having a full afro, clean-cut looks, and an air of
he do resemble like Jerome Saint off of SNOWFALL, though. I can't even lie to you.
Graduate or even a professional. He had the brains and charm to succeed in legitimate ways, but instead he became one of the most feared and infamous criminals in Compton, a city that, at the time, was arguably the most dangerous in America. The gunshot wound.
Oh, I can't even say he resembled Jerome Saint. Jerome Saint resembled him. The other way around.
The course of his life. While he survived the incident, it left lasting damage that would eventually catch up with him years later. By 2006, Putin's health began to decline, and complications from that old wound finally took their toll. He passed away at the age of 51. Putin's legacy is undeniable. He laid the foundation for what the Pyrrhus would become, turning them into one of the most notorious gangs in history and a central pillar of the Bloods Alliance.
Dang, bro. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. But listen, y'all let me know what y'all think. This is the end of the video. Make sure y'all like, make sure y'all comment. Most importantly, make sure y'all subscribe and hit that post notification bell. Set it to all. All social media links will be in the description. The link to the previous reaction video will be there as well. Follow, I had to burp, excuse me. Follow me on all my social medias and click the link to the previous reaction video and watch that whole video after you watch this whole video. Also, the link to the second channel will be in the description. Go click that link. Go subscribe to that channel, man. Y'all will be seeing my face over there from time to time. So make sure y'all go show some love for me. But check this out. I love y'all, and I appreciate y'all for showing me love back. And we out this thing, man, for real.